And the fact that they are putting together criminal penalties for people who assist people to vote, I mean, that just sounds insane to me. And that shouldn't be the way it is. It should be easier, not harder. I mean, think about all the elderly people. I think about my own father, who's 81, has trouble leaving the house. He wants to vote. He's an American. He needs help. And so people like that need help, and it should be easier and not harder.
Today, President Biden is set to deliver a major voting rights speech. The White House says he will make the moral case for voting rights. So joining us to break this all down, we have Republican strategist Mark Williams and attorney Vinoo Varghese to discuss what's happening in the Lone Star State. So, Mr. Williams, we'll start with you. The bill would ban drive-through and 24-hour voting, make mail-in voting more difficult, and also give poll watchers more authority. What's in this bill, in your opinion, that's driving the Dems to flee the state and go to Washington?
I mean, I think it's probably some of the things that you've listed, but I think more than that, they're looking to drive home kind of what their messaging is on this bill, right? They think it's bad. I think you've seen Dems across the country say a lot of these voting rights bills are bad for them and for democracy. So, look, they're going to have to return to the state at some point. The governor is going to call another special session, and I think something along these lines gets across the finish line at some point. So I think a lot of it is a potential PR stunt, and I find it a little bit a hint of irony that they're using a procedural tactic designed to help the minority, and then coming up and having talks with Chuck Schumer, who's trying to take away a procedural tactic up here in D.C., the filibuster that the minority can use. So we'll see how it plays out. I think at the end of the day that this bill ends up on the governor's desk.
Attorney Varghese, what's your opinion? I mean, you heard what Mr. Williams said. He basically says it's a political stunt.
I mean, it is to a large extent. I think that they have to regroup and figure out a way to come up with a plan that will serve their interests. I'm not sure flying out, that picture in the jet doesn't really look that good for them. I don't think that's a good look. But I think here what they can do is step back and really start talking to people and talking about how important this stuff is. Voting shouldn't get harder. It should become easier. I mean, we're in the 21st century. People should be able to vote from home. Why haven't they set up things where people can just create an ID and allow people to log in and vote? I mean, this should make it so much easier. And the fact that they are putting together criminal penalties for people who assist people to vote, I mean, that just sounds insane to me. And that shouldn't be the way it is. It should be easier, not harder. I mean, think about all the elderly people. I think about my own father, who's 81, has trouble leaving the house. He wants to vote. He's an American. He needs help. And so people like that need help, and it should be easier and not harder.
Well, that brings me to my next question. Why not make it easier? I mean, I can buy clothes, I can buy a house, I can do all that from my phone. Why not make it easier to vote? And so, Mr. Williams, I'll go to you. Why not make it easier to vote?
I mean, look, I think the problem right now is there's just a distrust of the voting system on both sides, and that's what we're seeing at play right now. Look, Democrats
but why, though?
equally.
There are very few cases of voter fraud.
No, I get that, but I want to harken back to the 2016 election where there were, foreign interests interfering in the election, right? And so it's going to take us some time to really open up and utilize technology. And I think everyone, and I think all of us can agree that we want an open and fair and secure voting system. It's going to take time. Look, your data gets breached all the time when you're buying stuff from your phone, and so. Why couldn't that happen to voting records and voting information? So, look, I think everyone has the same goal. It's just going to take us a while to get there.
Yeah, but I mean, that's fair. There was reports of foreign interference, but Republicans weren't this hell-bent on changing the system then when it worked in their favor. So,
right, and neither were Democrats. Democrats weren't hell-bent on changing the system when it was when it worked in their favor now, right? So look, I think it matters who's in power, and I think you're seeing that play out now.
All right. Attorney Varghese, Republicans argue that the bill would provide greater security. We bring us right back to that question of security. While Democrats say it would suppress voter turnout for minorities. How would voter turnout be impacted if this law is passed, or bill is passed into law, better yet?
Well, I think it's going to get passed. This is a question of when, right? So ultimately the Democrats in Texas have to come up and get more creative and do more voter turnouts and respond to this. I mean, they don't have the numbers right now to fight this, and this back and forth with the governor ultimately I don't think makes either of them look good. So I think when you have a situation like this, do what you've done in the past, which is massive, registrations, massive, get people out to vote. And I think then ultimately you're going to turn Texas. Texas is going to turn. The question is when. So once they do that and focus on and deal with what's in front of them, then they'll be able to handle this. And then you don't have to have these theatrics.
All right, so you both agree that this is some form of a political show by Democrats. My question for you is, they ran the first time, they're running this time. Why can't they just stand their ground at this point? What's the harm in just standing their ground?
I think they're trying to bring political attention to the issue, and they're trying to nationalize it. Look, it's a fait accompli with this bill, and like my friend said, the solution for Democrats is to win elections in Texas, which quite frankly they're not very good at. Look, I've been in Texas politics for almost 20 years now, and every 2 years I keep hearing how Texas is going to turn blue. That is yet to happen. So, look, I think they need to get better at winning elections, and the problem solves itself.
All right, and Attorney Varghese, what's your thoughts?
Well, look, I think it's going to happen. I mean, I know obviously you've my colleague here has got his ears to the ground more than I do in terms of local politics. But if the Democrats just do what they want to do, which is get people out, then the numbers are going to change. The country is turning blue and is headed in that direction more than it is red. So more people live in the cities. So the more registration, the more voting, the more people you have in the cities, then the greater the chance of winning these statewide elections. And so as long as they deal with it and not run from it, then I think they'll be in a better position.
Is there anything that can be done on the legal side?
That I know.
Not according to the U.S. Supreme Court,
Nothing. So their hands are ultimately
I mean, the United
tied.
States Supreme Court has basically left it to local legislatures, and I think that's the decision that came out July 1st, and basically set up a system for examining this. So as long as it follows that system, which I think this law does, then there's really nothing on the legal side that the Democrats can do.
All right, gentlemen, stay with us. After a short break, we'll talk more about the Democrat strategy to prevent restrictive voting measures, as they say, from passing in Texas. With the governor now threatening to lock them up, we'll find out how effective their plan really is when BNC returns.